Thank you so much for signing up to be a career fair navigator at the Fall Career and Internship Fair. We know that the career fair offers students a lot of opportunities, but it also can seem really overwhelming to some students. So I appreciate your support and being there for them. And I know that having you there at the event is something that's going to make them feel more comfortable navigating this professional setting. So in this video, I wanted to talk through just a few quick stats about the event. We'll look at the map of the event and kind of where everything's located. We'll talk briefly through the student check-in process and how students can find information about employers, some tips about coaching students on how to talk with employers, some common student FAQs, and then how students can follow up with employers after the event. So just a little bit about the event itself. The Fall Career and Internship Fair will draw about 240 employers and typically about 3,000 students. It is the largest career fair on campus. It's actually the largest one-day career fair in the state of North Carolina. Of those 240 employers, they represent a wide range of industries. We'll have Fortune 100 companies there, Fortune 500 companies there, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, and medium to small sized businesses. So when students get to the event and check in, they'll be given a program for the event itself. So I've pulled up a sample program, and this is a program from a past fair, but I wanted us to look at it to kind of look at the map and see what students will be given. So they'll check in and they'll be given this program, which is typically about 4 pages and has key information for them. So this first page shows us a map of the event itself. The bottom section of the map is the food court, and then the larger section here is the Holden Arena. So just to acclimate you a little bit more, the right side of the food court is considered east, and that's where the clock tower is. That's the side that faces Adkins Library. And then the west side of the food court, or the left side, is the side that's closest to West Deck. And that's where you'll be meeting with your students and where they'll be checking in. So they'll check in here at the west side, or on this map on the left side. They'll check in, they'll be given a program, and then they'll enter into the event in this large area at the bottom that is the food court, and we call it Section F. As you can see from the map, we labeled each section a different letter as a way to help students find tables. So if you look at the far right side of this map, you'll see Section A, and then if you go counterclockwise, you'll see sections B, C, D. Section E is kind of the skinny area, kind of where students will enter into the arena, and then Section F is the food court. So when students look for an employer, what they'll see is, and you can kind of see this on the right-hand side, they'll see a letter and a number. So for example, an employer might be at table C, 78. And what that means is the employer is in section C and they're at table 78. And that's how the student can find that employer. A few other things to know. I fully expect that we'll have some outside employers at the event, and they'll be outside of the facility on the east side. So they'll be outside very near the clock tower itself. And on this page, you can see a small map of where those employers might be. So very close to the clock tower itself. And students can talk to those employers there. And then these areas on kind of the top left and the top right that say employers only, those are our hospitality areas. So while they're not areas for students, that's where you're welcome to join us for breakfast or lunch whichever works best with the timing that you'll be at the event itself. So again, students will enter kind of from the left side of the food court and they'll check in. When they enter in those doors, the first thing that they'll see is a set of tables for check-in, and we'll have laptops there to check students in. The easiest way for us to check students in is for them to have either their physical or their mobile ID ready for us to check them in. If they don't have their ID, we can take their student ID number. We can even look them up by name, so we can definitely check in all of the students. Students have the option to RSVP for the event in advance, but they're not required to. And whether or not they RSVP, that doesn't change the check-in process. We're able to check students in very quickly, even when there's a line of students. And once students check in, they'll get a name tag for them to wear. The name tag will have their name and their major on it. If a student does express to you that information on their name tag is not the most accurate, or they would like to change information on their name tag, we can do that for them. They can just go back to the student check-in area and let our staff know that they need to change something on their name tag, and we can change that and reprint it for them. So that's no problem at all. And then, so they'll check in with their ID or ID number, they'll be given a printed program, and they'll be given a name tag. The other kind of main piece of information on this program is a QR code and a link for the student to find information about the employers that will be at the event. The printed program itself just basically has a list of the organizations and their table location. It doesn't include kind of additional information about the employer. Instead, we have all of that information online for the student to view. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the site that has that information and have us take a look at it. So we were looking at an example or a sample program, but I've pulled up the website for the actual event that's coming up on September 13th. And so here the students can go to this via the link or the QR code, and they'll see a list of all of the organizations that are attending the event. If they click on the name of an organization, they'll be able to see about the organization, their website, the types of positions they have available, what they're looking for, etc. And so students can find that, can click on any employer and look at that information. There's also a filters tab at the top. And when you click on that, you'll see there'll be some filters that will kind of show up. So students can filter on position type, career community, and work authorization. And there is a chance that some additional filters might be added between now and the event. In particular, this filter section is going to be, I think, really important for students who are on an F1 visa. So students who are on an F1 visa can click Student F1 Visa, and I'll just scroll down for a second. When I click on that link, the list of employers automatically filters to show the employers who, when they registered, said that they were interested in recruiting students on an F1 visa. Students who are looking for an internship in particular, or who are looking for a co-op, might also find this filter, this first filter, really useful. Typically, we find about 50% or more of employers are hiring interns, but still they may want to filter on that. So if a student has questions about kind of who's hiring, what organizations are hiring, what they're looking for, what types of positions they have available, we would have the student use the QR code or the link to go online and look at this information. The information online is also the most accurate information. Even once we printed the program, we typically find that there'll be a few changes to it. So maybe some new employers, a couple of employers that may be canceled, or employers may last minute kind of change the information on kind of their profile. And so the website is going to have the most recent information for students. All right. Let me go back here. Yeah. So a few tips for working with students who are talking with employers or maybe are nervous about talking with employers. It can be great for students to prepare a couple of sentences or an introduction for when they first start talking with an employer. While it's great if students do that before the event, if you're working with a student at the event, you might even suggest that they take a few minutes and kind of think about a couple of sentences that they might say when first meeting an employer. And that might be, a sentence with their name and their major. They might want to share what type of opportunity they're looking for. And if they've had an internship or leadership experience, maybe they would share a sentence about that. So having students kind of prepare that introduction can help them be more comfortable with that initial interaction with employers. Employers might be willing to shake hands. I usually tell students to let the employer dictate that. If the employer reaches out their hand, the student can shake it, but kind of leave that up to the employer to guide whether there'll be a handshake or not. And then during the conversation with employers, I expect that employers will probably ask students a couple of questions. That's likely going to be about the type of opportunity they're interested in, maybe the kind of experience they've had. If the student is applying for interested in kind of a technical position, they might be asked about what tech skills they have, what classes they've taken. And then I expect the student will have a chance to ask one or maybe two questions to the employer. That can be a great thing for the student to think about even when they're at the event before they start talking to employers. And then the majority of employers will take resumes at the event. So the student can offer their resume or the employer may ask for their resume. Again, most employers will take resumes at the event. And then kind of finally, encourage students to thank the employer for being at the event. They might see if they can get a business card from the representative, if they have one, and that can be helpful for following up. So talking a little bit about kind of common student frequently asked questions, the top question we get is about how to find a specific employer. We went through the map a little bit and talked about a few tips, kind of helping students find an employer. They can stop by our Ask Me tables to get help with that as well. Students also sometimes ask kind of what employers will hire me, what employers are hiring certain majors, and they have information online on that QR code about the information that we have from the employers. I think employers that attend career fairs are also happy to talk with students who may be less familiar with their organization. So if a student sees, the name of an organization and is interested in them, I just encourage them to go talk to the organization, and there they'll be able to find out kind of what they're hiring for, what type of positions they have open. International students might be particularly interested in the filter in the online page to help them find employers that will hire them. And then one of the things that you might hear from students is maybe kind of questioning, or maybe they might be concerned that the employers keep telling them they need to apply online. And they're going to hear that probably from most or all of the employers. And employers don't say that because they want to dismiss the student. It's just that employers have these applicant tracking systems that they used for all of their applicants. And so typically they're not able to actually consider an applicant who didn't apply online. So they're telling students that to make sure the student knows that they do need to apply online to officially be a candidate for a position. And then I wanted to mention kind of two more things. One is something that we started a couple of years ago, and that is that we have a quiet space now at the career fair. The career fair itself is a lot of people and can be a lot of noise. And so we have a quiet space up on the third floor for any students who need to take a break. So it's on the third floor. It's in what's called the third floor salons. How students can get there is they can go to the east side of the food court and they'll find either an elevator or they can take the stairs up to the third floor. And then in that hallway, they'll see a sign that says quiet room or quiet space. And they can go into that space. They can have a seat, they can hang out. We'll have fidget toys there for them to play with if that is helpful for them. But at any time, they're welcome to take a break. And then in terms of safety, I just wanted to mention kind of where the key exits are. Of course, for anyone who's near the food court, the exits are kind of all around the food court. For anyone who's kind of in the arena itself, the best exit might be this kind of top right area. I know it's marked employers only, but that can be a great exit area. The top left area is not a good exit. And so, yeah, for the arena, kind of the top right area would be a good exit there. And then do encourage your students to follow up with employers after the career fair. And they might want to find them on LinkedIn and connect with them there. They probably, if they haven't already, they should apply online. They might look at the events calendar to see if the employer is having on-campus interviews or is going to attend a networking event or have an information session. And that can be a great kind of next thing to connect with that employer to kind of continue that process. I hope that this gives you some good information about the event itself, things that can answer kind of most questions that your students will have about the event. And if you or they do have questions, feel free to connect with our staff at the event at those Ask Me tables. Again, thank you for being part of the Career Fair Navigators program.